right, good evening. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's Shocker Family Table Talk with Fraternity and Sorority Life. Those of you who have joined us in the past know who I am. I'm Kim Sandlin. I serve students and parents on the campus as the Director of Student Success, and I'm excited to be here tonight. Alicia is away at a conference, so you just get me tonight, plus our awesome presenter, Randy from SEAL, and who works with Fraternity and Sorority Life. So you all, if you've been to an orientation, you know who I am. But for those of you who may not have joined us before or have been to orientation, I am an alum of the university, a first-generation student graduate, and had a very, very positive experience. And I'm excited that I'm able to work at the campus that I really learned at and grew through lots of situations and classes and experiences. So I was also, or am, Greek as well. Had a great fraternity and sorority life experience when I was here. I was here quite some time ago, before some of the awesome programs that we have and some of the coordination. Greek life has come a long way over the past few years, especially under the direction of our current leadership in our student engagement office. So I'm going to throw it over to Randy, who's going to talk with us all about what Fraternity and Sorority Life is all about currently at Wichita State, and how your students can get involved, what they can expect from that experience, and then we'll take all kinds of comments and questions during our time here tonight. So Randy, if you want to take it away.
For sure. Hey, everyone. Like Kim mentioned, my name is Randy Corder. I'm the Assistant Director in Student Engagement, Advocacy, and Leadership, which is such long title. So we just call it SEAL. And that means that I get the pleasure of overseeing our fraternity and sorority community, along with all of our other recognized student organizations, and then all of our leadership programs as well. So I'm going to talk about fraternity and sorority life in this situation. But if you do have any questions about other engagement opportunities like student organizations, student government, community service, whatever that might be for your incoming student, I'm happy to answer any questions about student engagement towards the end. So I will dive right in. Our fraternity and sorority community at Wichita State has about just over 600 members, kind of always in flux. We have 26 organizations, and our community GPA is a 3.2. We're very proud of that. It is and has very consistently over the past always been above the all-university average, meaning that our students are performing better academically than a student that is not involved in fraternity and sorority life. And then our 26 chapters are broken up over 4 governing councils. So they're just kind of grouped into smaller little groupings that we use to oversee those organizations. So what makes a fraternity and sorority different from a regular student organization? The time and experience spent is much larger and much deeper. So our fraternities and sororities are social organizations with letters from the Greek alphabet. They are single-sex organizations, so all of our organizations still are single-sex, meaning that sororities are individuals that identify as female, fraternities are individuals that identify as male. They're also categorized by lifetime membership, so it's not just the 4 years or more that you're in college. It is for your entire life. Like Kim mentioned, she was a member of our chapter here and is still an alumna member of her organization. I'm still an alumna member of my Panhellenic organization and regularly volunteer and provide support for that group. And it's also characterized by some deep human development pillars. So those for us are philanthropic outreach and community service, professional and personal development, academic achievement, and then our organizations also have a great alumni base for things like networking. Said a little bit of this just now, but some of the benefits of membership in a fraternity or sorority organization are the brotherhood and sisterhood that you get out of that organization. You spend a significant amount of time with the people in that group and grow really, really deep bonds and lifetime friendships. You're also connected to the larger community, not just our Wichita State community, but also the larger Wichita community, the larger Kansas community, as contributors to community service efforts and philanthropic giving. All of our organizations are based on values. So when individuals join that organization, they learn about the values that organization has, things like friendship, love, loyalty, camaraderie, innovation, those kinds of words. And we really encourage our students that are interested in joining a fraternity and sorority to look deeply into what those values are and find an organization that matches up with values that they hold themselves. All of our organizations are service-oriented. We have a minimum 5-hour service requirement per semester for every member. The majority of our chapters have a service hour requirement that's larger than that, but at least every member is doing at least 10 hours of community service per academic year. Like I mentioned previously, the alumni network can be quite large, some even with international reach, which is a really wonderful thing to have as students are entering the job market, or even prior to that, looking for internships or wanting to do some shadowing for potential career opportunities. Leadership opportunities within fraternity and sorority life specifically. They can be leaders within their chapters, but then also leaders on the various councils that we have. We take a lot of our student leaders to national conferences so that they can network with other students, other individuals in the community. And then academically focused, like I mentioned before, academic excellence is one of our pillars. All of our members are required to have a minimum of a 2.5 GPA, but again, good number of the organizations on our campus, their minimum GPA requirement is higher than that. Some annual events that we love hosting, Greek Carnival. So that's kind of our first opportunity for incoming students to meet our chapters. Every chapter is present and hosts a little carnival game or activity. So this year's Greek Carnival will be August 19th. I believe that's a Saturday at 4:30. So we'll welcome students to hang out with our Greek members, get to know them, play some carnival games, eat some yummy food. It's a great time. Our next two, the New Member Greek Academy and Rising Greek Leaders Conference, those specifically are leadership development programs for new members in our community. So after a student joins their organization, their first year of membership is considered their new member period. Those programs are specifically for those students to help them connect with other new members in the community, but then also prepare them to step into leadership roles in their organizations in the future. Songfest, we host that event every fall semester. It is a lip sync competition, so it's a really fun opportunity for students to just be creative, and have a good time. And then our spring events are scholarship celebration, Greek Unity Week, and then we consistently do days of service and study nights to support those pillars that I mentioned earlier. So I'll talk a little bit about the 4 different councils that we have and the chapters within them. The first one is our Interfraternity Council. So these are the organizations that are governed by the Northern Interfraternity Conference. On our campus, we have 7 Interfraternity Council chapters: Beta Theta Pi, Delta Upsilon, Farmhouse, Lambda Chi Alpha, Phi Delta Theta, Sigma Alpha Epsilon, and Sigma Phi Epsilon. Our Interfraternity Council supports a couple of specific community philanthropies. So in the Wichita community, they support the Shocker neighborhood, which are all of the neighborhoods that surround the university campus, and consistently will go out and do neighborhood cleanups. We recently had a really big rainstorm, and even in the summer, they came out and picked up trash, picked up tree limbs, and just made our Fairmount Park in our Shocker neighborhood look like it used to before we had a big storm. And then nationally, they support the Movember Foundation, which is a men's mental health organization. I'll talk a little bit about how to join chapters a little later on, but specifically for IFC, the first opportunity to meet with them is an ice cream social, which would be on August 23rd. So yeah, I'll save the rest for in a little bit. Our Cultural Greek Council. So this is our culturally based organizations. We have 6 organizations under this umbrella. Chi Sigma Tau National Fraternity Incorporated is a Asian interest fraternity. Kappa Delta Chi Sorority Incorporated and Lambda Pi Upsilon Sorority Latinas Poderosas Unidas Incorporated are both Latina interest sororities. Sigma Lambda Beta International Fraternity Incorporated is a Hispanic Latinx interest organization. Sigma Psi Zeta Sorority Incorporated is a multicultural organization specifically for women. They used to be an Asian interest sorority, so kind of come from those roots. And then Mu Delta Alpha Sorority Incorporated is a Muslim interest organization. Our Cultural Greek Council supports USD 259, which is the Wichita local public school district, but they specifically do mentoring at Wichita Southeast High School, which has been a really great opportunity for them to meet high school students and help them, especially our first-gen high school students, as they enter into college at Wichita State. The opportunities to meet with the Cultural Greek Council would be their yard show, which is August 29th at 7 p.m. And then their informational, which is September 5th at 6 p.m. Our National Panhellenic Council was just chartered at Wichita State this year, rechartered. We used to have it, didn't have it again. We're so excited. So our National Panhellenic Council are historically Black fraternities and sororities. There are 9 in total nationally, and we're really proud to have 8 of them. So Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated, Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, and Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. So this is their first year as a council. They've been doing a lot of fundraising for their annual step show, which will hopefully return to campus next spring semester in April. So we're really excited for them. Opportunities to meet with NPHC would be at their yard show, which is on August 31st. And then their informational, which is just the next day on September 1st at 7 p.m. And then last but not least is our Panhellenic Council. We have 5 organizations in our Panhellenic Council: Alpha Phi, Delta Delta Delta, Delta Gamma, Gamma Phi Beta, and Kappa Kappa Gamma. And those organizations work with Circle of Sisterhood, which is a national philanthropy that builds schools in underserved communities. And then Harbor House is a local organization that helps victims of domestic violence. Panhellenic does recruitment in a kind of funny way that I'll explain to you in a little bit, but they do have some informational meetings if your student is interested in Panhellenic and not quite ready to sign up for recruitment. They do have informational meetings on August 18th, 21st, and 23rd. So how to join? Like I mentioned previously, all of our members have to have a 2.5 cumulative GPA. That is either coming from high school or if your student has transferred to WSU, whatever their transfer GPA is. And they have to be an enrolled student and at least 1 credit hour. Unfortunately, that means for us that WSU Tech students are not eligible. So for the Interfraternity Council, your student, if you have a male identifying student, might have already been reached out to via text or phone call from some members of our Interfraternity Council asking them if they are interested in getting to know them. The best way to join the Interfraternity Council is to respond to one of those messages and to attend any of those recruitment events that they're invited to. But they could also follow our chapters on social media and reach out to their president or their recruitment contact. Really, if you just DM their Instagram is probably the best way. If you have a specific organization that you're wanting to join in IFC, that would be the best way. IFC has 365 recruitment, so that means they recruit every day of the year. You can pretty much always commit to joining an Interfraternity Council fraternity. Our Cultural Great Council and our National Panhellenic Council have a very similar process for joining. So the first step would be to attend the informational at the start of the spring semester or the yard show in the fall. And to learn about all of the chapters that are there. The yard show is more of a kind of fun environment. Our students would call it a kickback, but the informational is a little more informational. Crazy. And each organization has a table. Students are able to come and talk directly with members of those organizations and just build a bit of a connection. The connection is really the key for these two councils. So connecting with a member, reaching out on social media. It's really important if your student is interested in one of these two council organizations for them to reach out and express their interest and then to see if that interest is reciprocated from the organization. And then to attend those informationals that I mentioned the dates of earlier. Panhellenic. So Panhellenic has a process called primary recruitment in the fall semester. If you're interested in learning about what that process is or what more about our chapters, you can visit wichita.edu/meetpc. But essentially what primary recruitment is a 4-day period where individuals that go through the process would meet with all 5 of our organizations. And then incrementally each day would meet with less and less organizations until they're matched with the one that best fits their needs or desires at the end. So it's kind of a crazy process. Kim can attest. Panhellenic recruitment is always a fun time, but also a wild time. But a student can register for primary recruitment at wichita.edu/PC recruitment. But there are opportunities if a student isn't interested in the primary recruitment process to join an organization through a process called continuous open bidding, so COB. At the completion of primary recruitment, COB opens. So organizations that have remaining spots to fill on their roster would be eligible to take new members through the COB process in August, really more in September, early September, and then in the spring semester. We do have a few chapter facilities that have live-in options. So finding a place to stay is super important for your student. Some of our organizations have those. Our 2 sororities are Alpha Phi and Kappa Kappa Gamma that have live-in options. Our other 3 Panhellenic sororities do have chapter facilities, but they're called lodges. So they're places where Members can go, do homework, have meetings, hang out. They have the ability to access that space all the time, but they don't have the ability to sleep there. But in Alpha V and Kappa Kappa Gamma, you do have that option of living in. And then for our fraternities, Beta Theta Pi, Delta Upsilon, Phi Delta Theta, Sigma Alpha Epsilon, and Sigma Phi Epsilon have opportunities for live-in. All of our facilities are considered off campus. However, all of them are also just right across the street from campus. So they're very, very close and within walking distance. They're privately owned by their organizations through what's called a housing corporation. So we tell you that to tell you that the spaces are not owned by WSU. It's not the same as living in a residence hall, but they're on campus, super, super close. And then all of them are alcohol and substance free. So all of our houses are dry and are annually inspected by our state fire marshal for safety. We get a lot of questions about the time commitment and finances. So it is really dependent on the organization that you choose, but I tried to put some kind of overarching things. So when it comes to finances, what you are paying for is chapter dues. Those dues help the organization operate. So not only are you paying a due to Fraternity and Sorority Life for us to host events like Great Carnival Songfest, New Member Greek Academy, but also to your organization to provide similar social and academic programming. If applicable, you might be paying housing fees, programming or social fees. So a lot of our organizations will have a formal or semi-formal social, sisterhood or brotherhood events, things like that. You're paying insurance to your national organization, and additional fees could be like technology, like the Wi-Fi in the house, or apparel like t-shirts, or any specific initiation fees. And then the time commitment, like many things we say at Wichita State, you get out what you put in. So minimum, members are expected to attend weekly new member meetings at the beginning and weekly chapter meetings, sisterhood and brotherhood activities, and community-wide events. We have a few that are required. The opportunities for engagement in a fraternity and sorority are as far as any student would want them to go. You could be doing chapter stuff every single day if you really wanted to. But these are kind of the bare minimum commitments that all of our organizations do. And that's all I have. So this is our contact information. If you have any questions or come up with something from your student, you can email us at Greek Life or any of our social media. And then our interest form is just wichita.edu/FSL interest. So if your student knows nothing else, but they want to join a fraternity or sorority, one of them somehow, they can fill out that and get contacted by one of our members to help them work through the process.
All right. Thank you so much, Randy. This was really lots of information to kind of share with everyone today. We do, have some questions, all from Tom. So that's awesome. And they're all about fraternities. So
Perfect.
I have some for sororities, though. So don't you fret. First, I think you addressed this. Are there any fraternities at WSU that are not part of Interfraternity Council? So you did talk about the multicultural groups, the National Panhellenic Council as well. But sometimes on college campuses, there will be other student organizations with Greek letter names. And sometimes those are honorary organizations or academic organizations. So those have a completely different focus than the organizations through Fraternity and Sorority Life. So would you add anything to that, Randy?
Yes, I would just say that our organizations are all primarily social Greek letter organizations in nature. That's really the differentiation. Like Kim mentioned, those other groups that might have Greek letters are typically honor societies, things like that have quite a bit less time or financial commitment.
Great. All right. So can students join chapters in the spring semester or sophomore year? So yes, I think you covered that, right? Are there any restrictions? Would that ever not be true?
No, honestly, I would say the only times that would be true for the spring semester is in Panhellenic if any of those organizations have a full roster. And that's not often the case. And so pretty much always there's an opportunity to join outside of those formal recruitment periods. And it doesn't just have to be for first year students. All of our organizations, except really any student from sophomore to senior. I would say even more specifically, our Cultural Greek Council and National Panhellenic Council really prefer to take a student that's a little bit older, that has gone through at least a year of college. And so you might find that if your student is interested in one of those organizations, they might spend their first year just hanging out with the organization, having conversations, staying connected, but they might not actually join or cross into that organization until their sophomore or junior year.
Yeah, and that really gets kind of to the point of the purpose and the history of those organizations, right? And the processes and the intake processes and the recruitment processes, because they do vary for from group to group. So also wanted to ask, is there any data or anything that you have on the success of students who join fraternity and sorority life their first semester versus waiting until a little bit later? Are you all seeing any differences there? Do you have anything that you can share with them?
Nothing off the top of my head really differentiates a student's Greek experience, whether they join their first semester or later on, other than the time of their membership. I would say there's no direct correlation, but the additional time spent dedicated to things like academic excellence, social connection, could improve a student's potential to retain at Wichita State and stay through graduation the sooner that they join. But I don't have anything specifically that points to that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So some of what I've seen over the last few years in terms of the growth of, and I'll speak for in the Panhellenic groups, right? There's a lot of life skill that students develop and learn and really have to manage in these organizations. I think that's true for any social group, right? So they're having these leadership conferences and they're in these leadership roles and they get elected and they get to do all this really cool work. But sometimes there's conflict, surprise, in a group, particularly of women, right? So, and they have to work through and manage that. And that teaches them a lot of valuable skills that they are going to need in a time sometimes when our students aren't the best at that face-to-face communication. A lot of the students and the student leaders that we work with too sometimes have challenges when it comes to interpersonal conflict and communication and holding each other accountable and expectations, and those are some of the secondary kind of things that come along with Greek life. So it's a deep experience, I think, deeper than another maybe registered student organization that comes together for fun and some pizza every now and again and some really good work. But the deep connection and the deeper kind of involvement and skill building, life skills, academic skills, etc. And the longer you're in Greek life, the more of that you have exposure to and the more opportunity you have to really develop those life skills. So that's just an aside that I wanted to bring in there. Another question is, what would you say what's the average cost per year?
It really depends on the organization. So I truly can't answer that question. I would need to know which, at least council, they're thinking of. I would say a minimum in a semester is probably, I think $200 would be the lowest that I've heard. The maximum that I am aware of, I believe, would be closer to $3,000. So there's a range. It really depends on the organization. It depends on what those dues include. So for some of our organizations, their due is comprehensive. They pay it once and then they don't have to pay for any extras at all throughout. Some organizations are, this is your chapter due, but if you want this experience or this t-shirt or go to this program, then you have to pay throughout. So it really depends on the organization. But if there is a specific one in mind for the person that asked, please feel free to email us or give me a call and I would be happy to give you a more specific answer.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know from advising, groups, if there's questions about, is this affordable or do you work? I know that a lot of chapters will work with members who are trying and making good faith efforts if they fall behind in a payment, but they have to communicate that to their chapter, just like they would need to communicate that with the university, their payment plans and such. There are ways to work with students because obviously we don't want this to be cost prohibitive, but membership dues are an expectation of membership. So it's kind of, it's a choice and a challenge, you have to kind of navigate there. So
yeah, I would also add that many of our organizations offer scholarships, some specifically for membership dues, but then others just academically, that if you have enough scholarship dollars that could be returned to you and a refund could be used to pay chapter dues. So I believe we have just over $90,000 across all of our 26 organizations available in scholarships annually.
Okay. And that question for the average cost was for specifically fraternities. So I don't know if they're still
for interfraternity council.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Okay. Yeah, I truly.
It still ranges.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah. It depends on the organization and the size of their facility.
That's all good. Another question, though, about payment and dues and all of that. Can you use 529 funds?
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, so that is a savings plan that parents will put together for their students. So I'm going to go out on a limb here and say, as long as the 529 plan doesn't penalize you for taking it out, that's something that you would want to look at your 529. I don't think Greek Life necessarily cares where that comes from, if that's a savings account or if that's personal paycheck or a loan or whatever, excess loan money or whatever you might have. They're going to accept that payment, but the question is then really on the 529 side, do they allow you to be able to use those funds for extracurricular and co-curricular kinds of opportunities? So that's about all I don't know if that was very helpful, but that would be a question then for that particular savings program. So let me look here. Fraternity dues are not included in this list. However, if your child, Tom is very informed, thank you. Child lives in a fraternity or sorority chapter house, you may be able to use 259 funds to pay for housing costs. So this is one of the things that's great about Shocker Family Table Talks and getting connected this way, because often you all help each other. So thank you for that. All right. So anything else? It looks like we have answered all of the other questions live. I'm going to look at my list over here. Oh, so for those on the line who might be interested in the selection process or knowing more about the matching process and selection process. In the Panhellenic world, we talk about it's a mutual selection process. The chapters are selecting members, members are selecting chapters. What would you say, what happens if I don't get the group that I want? How do you navigate that, and does that happen very often?
Yeah, I would say statistically our match rate for from the new member side of achieving their first choice of organization is 90%. So the majority of our individuals going through Panhellenic primary recruitment are matching to the chapter that they selected and thought that they had a best fit for. So for those other individuals that don't get what they think is their first choice, that was me. I didn't get what I thought that I wanted. And I can't tell you how thankful I am that I was put in the organization that I was. It sounds so corny, but we tell all the members that go through, just trust the process. There's a reason that these things happen. The organizations that you're coming back to are seeing something in you that connects with them, that they want, that they need to advance their organization. And they also see that they have something that they can give to you. So we'll tell your daughter or whomever is going through, trust the process. Even up to bid day, if they receive a bid and they're not interested in the organization that they're joining, the penalty for doing that is they just have to wait another year to go through informal recruitment or formal recruitment again. So they can get up to bid day, go to the bid day party, hang out with the girls. If it's still not a vibe, then cool. We just let us know. And then they just have to wait a calendar year to be able to join a different organization.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're all, again, speaking from the Panhellenic world, all very similar. They're philanthropic. They have values. They have, scholarship is a focus. And so they are very similar, but they have just these unique qualities that then, they're matching through, and they're seeking out students that have particular qualities. And so there have been many bid days that, there are one or two students, and they're, it's not the end of the world. Any group in fraternity and sorority life is a quality group and quality experience. And so don't let the fear of not getting the chapter that you've heard of over the past 4 years in high school, that kind of goes out the window, because once you start college, it's really a fresh slate for everyone, and truly look at it and go through these processes, whether that's the intake process, crossing over into a cultural group or an MPHC group, or a formal, or it's not formal recruitment. What is it? What do you call it now?
Primary recruitment.
Excuse me, recruitment. I have old school knowledge. Sorry. Don't let that dissuade you from this process, because it's there for a reason, and it really is meaningful going through that and having that life experience too. So, yeah. All right.
I would add too, for the Panhellenic process, it's also just a great way to meet other women. Like if you have a student that is concerned about making friends, or is coming to Wichita State and they don't know people, like it's a great way to just make some friends right off the bat, before it's during school, but in the early days of classes. And if right before the last day they don't want to join, then they don't have to. But then they've met these people and built these connections. So I would say if there's like any inkling of like, I might want to join, to sign up for recruitment and just at least start the first couple of days of the process. And then if it's not for them,
take that step. Definitely take that step, and encourage your student to engage with the process and with the groups. Question: is there one page online that lists all of the chapters, or do you need to click on each council to see which chapters are part of that council?
You would click on each council to see.
Okay. And can you, maybe our friends in the back, shout out to Aaron and Quang, who are working in the background here, if you might put up the website that students, there we go, can, or not students, families, whomever, see what Greek life opportunities are available. So that's their contact information on the screen. All right. Last call for questions. Anything else? I know we have one more announcement before the end, but I will stall in case anybody's typing in the chats and any of the platforms. Randy, is there anything that you would leave tonight's, leave thoughts for the group who joined tonight, or who may be turning in a little bit later? Anything that you would leave us with?
It's going to be sappy, but our community really isn't like any other that I've seen. And I've worked in fraternity and sorority life at other institutions, even institutions of similar size to Wichita State. And ours really is different. It's nothing like what you see in the movies or may have even experienced in your college experience, our chapters are all really connected and really supportive of one another. It's really just a great thing to be a part of. And so I would say if your student has any desire to join one, even if it's just the smallest, I would really push them to reach out and return one of those text messages from IFC or connect on social media with CGC or NPHC or sign up for recruitment. Just take a step. It doesn't mean you have to take the whole journey, but just move a little forward. And if you decide it's not for you, no hard feelings.
Yep, absolutely. I would agree 5,000%. This is also, it's a really great way. I was a commuter student, so I lived at home, and this was a great way to have a very traditional experience, on our campus. So definitely agree with everything that Randy has said tonight. So, all right. It doesn't look like any more questions came in. So we're going to announce tonight's winner of our swag. I don't know what the swag is. It's just going to be some fun shocker stuff, because Alicia will send that out to you. But the winner is Renee Muting. I'm hoping I'm saying that correct. So congratulations, Renee. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Don't hesitate to reach out to either myself or Randy or Alicia throughout these programs, and we'll be back. I think next week. I'm going on vacation, so I will be gone next week. But Alicia will be back, and we've got some really great topics planned for the rest of the summer. So thank you all for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it, and let us know how we can serve you and your students at Wichita State. We'd love to have the chance to do it. So thanks so much, everyone. Good night.